This is AgGrad Live.
We have all of the different segments within the cotton.
The show that explores what it's really like to work in the ag industry.
So making sure that we get policy and regulatory issues
straight from the people who live it every day. AgGrad Nation, we are back for another episode of AgGrad Live. We've shifted this up, as you know, if you caught the last couple episodes, to a more focused effort on career advice. Through your feedback, we wanted to make sure that we were bringing you actual content that was valuable to you and really relevant to your life with what's going on now. And what was overwhelming in the response was, we want to know how we can be more successful in our careers. And through that, I had a great conversation with our guest here today, who was talking about kind of subtle things he's noticed that have made the difference between someone who seems to get off on a great footing and gain a lot of momentum in their career versus somebody who maybe stagnates or doesn't go anywhere. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to bring him on. I have with us here today Stephen McBride. Stephen is an insurance agent for Farm Bureau Insurance in Tennessee. Stephen, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, my man.
Well, so first question I got to ask you, just this is totally random, and then I want to get into the meat here. Farm Bureau Insurance, is that the same Farm Bureau as like the American Farm Bureau, all one entity?
So Farm Bureau is a little bit interesting. We're all associated with the American Farm Bureau Federation on the agricultural side, the one that does a lot of lobbying and fundraising and helping out farmers in their communities. But each state has kind of their own policy on whether or not they have an insurance company. It started way back in the day where states that were associated with their American Farm Bureau chapter in their state would offer an insurance company because it was really hard for farmers to have to be insurable. Companies didn't want that exposure. It was a high risk. And so they're like, hey, this is a way to help out these farmers and get them some insurance. So back in the day, it started popping up. Ohio Farm Bureau, actually, their insurance, it became nationwide insurance. So a lot of states that have nationwide, that actually has its roots in being the Ohio Farm Bureau. In the southern states, Mississippi, Arkansas, Georgia, those types of states, they kind of got together. Tennessee was a part of Southern Farm Bureau, but around about the 40s, we decided to kind of split off and have our own separate entity. So we're not directly affiliated with the other insurance companies, but we're all kind of together when it comes to the agricultural side of things.
Cool. And I know you've had, you actually have a family history in insurance, and you went into the business, the same business that your dad is in as well, a couple of years ago, or almost 2 years ago. Because you're so recently out of college, I'm sure you get a lot of people ask you about kind of career hacks, career advice, other people that are early in their career. Before we dive into the weeds, I just like to give the value right out the gate here. What are kind of like just from a high level things you've noticed that have helped people in their careers?
I think the biggest thing is knowing what you're up against. You know, you think about, David and Goliath, knowing what that giant is and kind of having a game plan of, okay, here's how I'm going to be successful in my career. It's real difficult, but a lot of people, they get into their career, they have no idea, they're as green as can be. And then it's real difficult because then you're trying to figure it out while also trying to be successful at the same time. So those that are successful, they kind of find out pretty quick what's expected out of them, and then they put together their own personal game plan that works. What you do may be different from the person in the cubicle right next to you, what works for you and what doesn't. And that's the beauty of it. You know what works to your strengths, you can play to that, and then know kind of what your goals are and what you want to do as far as long term. And then you see those people that are successful, they're working on that every single day, no days off.
Very cool. And so when you got there, when you first started, did you go through like a training, like here is how you be successful as an insurance agent, or did you have to kind of figure out that game plan on your own?
Super big help having my dad be an agent when I was growing up, because I kind of knew what was expected of agents. Kind of how we do it in our company, you start, and then after you've been there for a couple of weeks and kind of understood how the office works and kind of how insurance works and helping out customers, then we actually spend a week at a time over the course of maybe 3 to 6 weeks, just depending on people's schedules, on the new agents, going through training on the lines of business that that we have. So our main three are property insurance, auto insurance, and life insurance. So you'll have what they call a school, which is a week-long study with the people at the home office, kind of teaching you the ropes and going through it from start to finish over a week's time for each of those. And then you kind of go back in and work on those. But in the meantime, I mean, you might not finish your final school until you've been with the company for 2-3 months. And so in the meantime, you're asking the other agents in your office, the other people that have been there, kind of, hey, what do I need to be doing? How do I help this customer out? Can I sit in the corner of your office and take some notes? I don't really know what I'm doing here. And that's how you can kind of learn the business. And then again, even though my dad has been with the company a long time before I started, our offices are different. We have different communities, different needs in the communities, different demographics. So everything that works in his office may not work in mine. So that's kind of how it works, kind of getting started and learning what the heck is expected of you from the beginning.
Yeah, and I imagine in insurance, especially, you can tell like who's performing as far as like who has, a lot of sales or a lot of business or a lot of customers, versus somebody who maybe is just happier with their book of business. As you've been able to see the different offices, what stands out to you on a real practical level? Like, hey, these things the high performers seem to always do. Is there anything where you just like you picked up on really quick, like, hey, all the high performers seem to do X, Y, and Z? Anything like that?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we do have one of those kind of on our inner office homepage, kind of knowing how you're stacking up against the other people in your field, seeing, am I reaching my goals compared to everyone else? And then you can kind of see the high performers. So me being a guy that wants to be successful in everything that I do, I had no problem reaching out to some of those guys and being like, look, I mean, you're killing it. What are you doing that I'm not? When you started out years ago and you were new like me, what did you do to get to this point that you are now, that I can kind of learn those and start working on them now? And the biggest things that I realize is those guys tell me, hey, learn the regular day-to-day business inside and out as fast as you can. You never want to have a customer asking you a question and you not knowing the answer right away. So when you're new, you're, let me go check. And you might have lost a sale to a competitor down the street by the time you get that answer. Mm-hmm. So knowing that answer soon off the bat, learning the business inside out, that was the key. Then also kind of learning what you've got to do. If you expect to make a certain number of sales, you need to keep a ledger. You need to know how many people it takes, how many contacts you're making. The industry average, they say, is for every 10 people that you contact, 3 of them are actually going to set an appointment with you, and you might get 1 sale out of those 10. So if you know that you got that 10-3-1, what's your numbers? Because when you're starting out, I mean, I kept the track last year, and mine was almost closer to like 45 to 50 people I contact to get 1 sale. And so it's like, hey, I know why, because I'm green. I look like I don't know what I'm talking about. And by the time I've spit out what my little sales pitch would have been, they're already gone. And so learning how to lower those numbers and get them at least closer to the industry average, maybe even higher, what work it takes, keeping those notes. And then I think the biggest thing is having some excitement, having some energy about it. One of the greatest books that I've read is by a guy named Frank Betjer. He was an insurance salesman from way back when. I'm talking like the early 1900s, and he became quickly one of the most successful salesmen of all time. And he had a book where he just kind of wrote about what he did. And the number one thing he said was just be excited about what you're selling, because if you're excited about it, then that's just going to have that ripple effect with your customers too.
Okay, so I have a question about that, because it's hard to fake excitement, right? And so insurance, and you may disagree with this, insurance to a lot of people is not the most exciting thing in the world. So what keeps you excited and passionate? Because I talk to a lot of people that say, yeah, I could go get a job as a banker, but banking really just doesn't excite me. And I don't know, maybe there are people who are just born to be natural born insurance salespeople, but I imagine it's probably got to come from somewhere else. So for you, kind of what keeps you excited to do what you do?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. Insurance, like many other things, can be super boring if you really think about all the ins and outs that it takes. And to your average person that just is like, hey, I just want the minimum. I don't care about this insurance stuff. Getting you excited and them excited, that's a huge thing. So I guess the biggest thing is you need to know what you're all about. What is the product that I'm selling? Why is it such a good thing? Kind of think of it from the customer's perspective of, okay, this is the same as just about any other company. Why would I buy it if I was the customer? What good is it doing me? Especially when it comes to life insurance. Okay, I don't plan on dying for another 70 years. So why do I need this life insurance? Mm-hmm. Well, being able to think about, well, what if you did die? Think about the debts you have. Think about your family. Think about how sad that they would be at your loss, but then also the financial situation. So thinking about how important it is, that product, just to have it, it helps you to get way more excited about it, because once you know why it's important, why each product that you have helps the customer, it makes it much easier to get excited about it, because you're like, man, you need this. Like this, you need to fast forward in your mind a little bit what your life would be like if you didn't have it. And then look, we've got these products that can help you right now. So it's much easier to be excited about something that's pretty boring if you think about why it's so important. And even if you don't truly believe that at first, figure out a way to realize why that's important to you. Because if you don't think that your product is important, let me tell you, somebody else is, and they're going to be ones that sell it to the customers and not you.
No, I think that is so true. I think people confuse needing to be passionate about the context versus needing to be passionate about the problem that you're really solving. And that could be anything. In your case, it's financial, the security of your family. I mean, who doesn't get passionate about the security of their family? And so looking past like, oh, insurance doesn't excite me, and saying, you know what excites me? Helping people protect their families, about one of the top ways you can help them. And same with me. People say, oh boy, recruiting, really? You just want to be on the phone all day and experience rejection? But I get very excited about the impact a new job can have on somebody's life. I mean, it can be huge. And so I think that's great advice that people overlook. You don't have to be excited about the context, but you do need to be passionate about the problem ultimately that you're solving. And a lot of times those contribute to people's livelihoods, or in your case, the security of their family or their assets. And that's a huge deal. I know you've mentioned the importance of preparation. We're talking here about the little things that people do that can differentiate them in the long run between being a top performer and being maybe somebody who's not a top performer. So help us. I think a lot of people coming out of college, they're told kind of where to go, when to go to class, what to study, how to be successful. And then you get out in the work world and it's kind of on you to be prepared. So what are your top tips as far as preparation goes to being more prepared?
Well, it's daylight and dark for me in a classroom, because, I mean, you think about it, you can skip class if you don't feel like going. You can't skip work if you don't feel like going. You're either going to get in big trouble or you're not going to have a job. And so those that are super successful, they understand the importance and the impact of having those.
Oh, we lost Steven there. Oh, there you are. You're back. Yeah. They understand the importance of that. We lost you, but you are back.
But anyway, they understand the importance of having that strong start. So those individuals, the biggest tips that I can give you, when you get to work, learn everything you can about the workplace that you're in. Learn the ins and outs. If you've got several other people in your building that are all working for your same company, learn what they do. If you've got customer service representatives, learn about what the janitor does. Learn their schedule. Learn about everything that goes on. Because think about it. If you have goals of moving up and moving onward in your career, it's going to help you a lot more to understand why everything works the way that it does, why each job is important. And it's going to help you be more successful, because you're going to know who to call upon whenever you've got a big question on how to help somebody or how to do something that's really new to you. So learning what everybody does, learning what your business is, that's the biggest thing, because that helps you from getting to where most of us kind of get to, where it's like, I don't know what in the world I'm doing. And now I don't know what to do about that. I mean, I'd much rather go back to college and where I could just sleep in and do whatever I wanted to. What am I doing here? So you got to figure that out pretty quick. Otherwise you're not going to find that success like you want to.
Right. And I have heard, in fact, I had the conversation today again, where someone was saying, I would consider a new job in sales or consider going into sales, but I would feel awkward because what if I don't know one of the answers? So here I am trying to sell a product and they go, okay, well, what about this? And I'm new, so I don't know. For you, at what point was it where you felt like, okay, I got this. Like, I can handle the customer rejection. I can handle their objections to various aspects of what I'm trying to sell them. I feel like I'm an authority. How long did that take you, and how did you get there?
Yeah, so that's something that it's a little bit different for everybody, but kind of a good key to remember is just being okay, learning that you're going to get way more no's than yeses. So once you get through a bunch of those no's, you're getting much closer to a yes. So realizing that, hey, just about everybody that I'm talking to could care less about buying what I'm trying to sell them. So I realized that. So I got to find a way around that rejection. A lot of times you got to find the core of it. You know, many times when people say no, what's the real reason? Is it because you don't really have the time right now? Do we need to get together when you do have the time? Is it something that you don't really understand, so you don't want to get too bogged down in it right now? Or is it legitimately no because you have a reason why you don't want it? And even if it is that, maybe that's a misconception that you had that can be corrected. So getting to the root of why people are rejecting you, that can help you around it. You know, many times it'll be, oh, you know, well, I like what you're saying, buddy, but let me talk to my wife about it, and we'll get back to you. And you can just about respond to those folks with, I bet you don't. I can put my money on it that I'm never going to see you again. So that's why when you try to get an appointment with somebody, hey, when's a good time for you and your wife to come here? That way you wipe that one right out of the gate, because, hey, they're both here in front of me. You're not going to be able to use that excuse.
Or so just your wife, maybe.
Exactly. So learning that it's okay to get rejected, finding a way past that rejection. And then also probably a real big thing is just learning every product that you have that's available, because every product that you have might be different for each individual's needs. So those are good ways to kind of get around that and realize that, hey, you're going to get a lot of no's, you're going to get rejected pretty often. But if you think that a sales career is something that would excite you aside from that, find out why you're scared about it, because it might be something relatively small once you really dissect it.
Yeah. And you said something earlier that I thought was genius that you used. And I think not enough people use this to their advantage, is just going to someone who's successful in that career and saying, I'm new here. You know, use that excuse as much as you can to learn. Like, hey, I'm new. So, you know, if you kind of go at it from that approach, once you've established yourself as not new there anymore, you kind of lose that card to play amongst, you know, learning from people who've been around a lot more. So I think going in and asking those really basic questions, don't think I should already know, ask the real basic questions first so you can get that out of the way early on. Well, Stephen, what about you as far as career track? I mean, the insurance career track, what does that look like for those who are just kind of curious about where you go from here?
Yeah, so many different companies are going to operate a little bit differently. So you might have a different opportunity in your area, but insurance as a whole, what you're selling is a product for somebody that's helping them with it, whether it's auto insurance, home insurance, business insurance, life insurance, health insurance. Each one of these, you're helping a need. So a lot of times you got to figure out what that need truly is in your area. If you live in a really domesticated area that has a lot of houses, you need to learn kind of the difference in different types of home insurance, what helps people's needs the most. There's also people that will have renters houses, and so they own those rental houses, so you got to insure those a little bit differently. You got auto insurance. Some people want to just have the state minimum that's required just so they can show that they have proof of insurance, and they don't really care to have it. Other people want to have everything that they have on full coverage because they really don't want to get into a bind where that's the one car that didn't have full coverage and it was the one that got wrecked. So learning those products, how they fit people's atmospheres, even life insurance, when you think about it, a lot of companies, they're offering great life insurance benefits package to their customers. Well, if you're a life insurance agent, how do you sell to these people that already have a ton of life insurance with their company? Well, you need to know like what types of products there are. A lot of times those companies, they're selling a term plan that's just lasting while they're working there. So you might have an opportunity to sell them something that's going to last much longer than that period of time, maybe a little bit smaller, something that's helping them with estate planning or burial coverage or something like that, to where they'd have that maybe even as a safety net. Maybe they're not going to have that job forever, or just helping people learn about the needs that there are. I consider myself to be an educator, really. if you consider yourself as a salesman to be an educator, you're going to have a lot easier of a job, because most people, I mean, we already talked about how boring insurance can be. Most people, they don't know about insurance. They don't really even know what they have. They just know that they have to have it. They had to have that mortgage insurance just because they have a loan on their house, and that's their bank said they need to go get insurance. They got to have full coverage on their car just because the state law said that they had to, and they got a loan on it. So that's why they've got that. They don't know what they really have. So that's where I have an opportunity to just be an educator. Hey, here's how this works. Let me just, if you got just 5 minutes, I can get through this real quick. Here's what policy you have. Here's what's covered. Here's what's not covered. Here's how that works. Here's how this works. Here's how your deductible comes into play. Here's what happens if you ever have a claim. Just going through that and educating them on how it works, what they already have, what they might need to add. It's a lot of fun when you can turn it into kind of an education thing, because even if they don't buy anything, they walked out of your office learning about what they have. They learned something to where when they are more interested later on down the road, they remember that you took the time to sit down and go over it with them. So you're the one that they want to buy from when they are interested in actually adding something different.
Yeah, absolutely. So you give value, give as much value as you can, and trust that, it's gonna come back eventually. And that's what you've done here today, Stephen. I really appreciate you being on the show. Appreciate all of the hacks and the advice and the value that you've given the AgGrad community. For those of us, most of us, and I still put myself in this category, I don't know how much longer they're going to let me, but are, young professionals in agriculture, ambitious, looking to improve our own careers. How can we give back to Stephen McBride or reach out to you as a result of kind of the wisdom you've shared here today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on all kinds of social media, so find me on whichever one's your favorite. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, everything. So if you want to send me a private message just to connect there, that's a great way to do it, especially if you've got any other questions, or if you're even thinking about a career getting into insurance and you want to kind of know what you're getting into. Give me a holler, or if you've got any questions about life in general, I don't care. Give me a shout.
Cool. Stephen, thank you so much for being on the show. If you didn't watch this live, because you can never make it Wednesdays at 5:00, so when we usually do this, we also release this as a YouTube video and as a podcast. So you can go check out Stephen and others either on the YouTube channel for AgGrad or on AgGrad Live podcast. So Stephen, thank you so much again. We're going to sign off, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you for joining AgGrad Live. Visit aggrad.com. That's AGGRAD. To join the community, create your profile, and learn more about careers in the agriculture industry.